Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to thorough newspaper analysis for the 1st of May 2024. Now let's quickly proceed and have a look at the pointers of discussion for today. So first of all, we have the editorial segment, and here we're going to discuss an Indian Express article with the title, Supreme Court rejects application of eggshell skull rule in a medical negligence case. What is this legal principle? Secondly, we talk about the legal news updates for the day. Secondly, we talk about the news updates, and this is going to be followed by the last segment of legal news. So without further ado, let's start with the article. The title of that, I would like to read that out again. Supreme Court rejects application of eggshell skull rule in a case of medical negligence. What is this legal principle? Let's see the context of it. Now, before I read out the context, I would like to give you an undertone to this particular case so that you're in a position to understand the context better. So there was a medical negligence case which came from Himachal Pradesh, Mandi district of it, and the patient who was aggrieved by the negligent act of the doctor, she approached the consumer forum, the district consumer forum, and there she got a compensation to the tune of rupees 5 lakh. Then the matter reached the state consumer forum, where the state forum interestingly invoked this principle of eggshell skull rule and reduced the compensation to mere 1 lakh rupees. Then the matter was before the National Commission, the Consumer Forum, and the National Commission also endorsed the application of this particular legal principle while enhancing the compensation, but only to the tune of rupees 2 lakh. Then the matter reached the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court expressed its displeasure, so to say, at the way the forums, they applied the principle of eggshell skull rule without justifying its application. And the Supreme Court was of the opinion that this entire application, it was absolutely misplaced. And therefore, the court, considering the fact that this entire matter has been going on for about a decade now, and that the woman has already suffered a lot, has enhanced the compensation to the tune of rupees 5 lakh, and the compensation therefore was restored to what was granted initially by the District Consumer Forum. Now, in light of this, let's read out the context. Underlining that the state and the central consumer courts, they incorrectly applied the eggshell skull legal principle, the Supreme Court on 23rd of April restored the compensation of rupees 5 lakhs, which was awarded by the District Consumer Forum in a medical negligence case. Now, so far, I've already talked about the eggshell skull, as in I've mentioned the name. So let's now see what is this principle essentially, what this principle essentially is. So for that, let's first take an example and then we get to the legalities of it. See, there is a person A, he has a leg injury, and there's a person B. Now, person B kicks person A at the same area where the leg injury is existing, and B is unaware of this leg injury. Now, person A already had an infection in his leg because of the injury, but the infection was not harming him so far. But because of the kick that was given by person B, his infection and the leg injury, which was already existing, it got triggered and it got aggravated. It got intensified. And as a result, he had to seek a lot of medical help. He had to undergo a lot of medical procedure. And as a result, his medical cost enhanced, it increased. Therefore, he suffered financially, and also he suffered a lot of health detriment. So as a result, he approached the judiciary, and his argument essentially was that defendant be asked to, remedy the wrong that is done. That is to say, he be asked to pay damages to me. Now the defendant comes to the forefront and he says that why should I be asked to bear the entire cost of this injury, which in fact is aggravated because there was an already existing injury. So what if B comes to the forefront and he says that suppose I kicked the person C who did not have any injury already existing, then would he have sustained the same amount of injury? The answer would be no, right? So then B argues that then I should be, held liable to the extent that my act would have gotten, or my act would have resulted into a consequence which is inflicted upon a normal person. I should be asked to pay compensation and damages to that extent only. Why should I, give enhanced compensation to a person who already had a injury which was pre-existing and I didn't even know of that injury? So then what do you think should have been the answer here? So the answer here was given in the case of this, which was, we'll take it up later also. And here what the court said essentially was that no, your arguments, the court is saying this to be, that your arguments are not sustainable in law because you should be held liable for whatever consequence your act results into, regardless of whether the plaintiff's pre-existing condition or regardless of whether the plaintiff's peculiar situation is aiding to that consequence, in intensifying that consequence. Regardless of that, because you did an act which was unlawful and your act has caused a certain consequence, you will be held liable to the entire extent of the injury that has now been resulted upon the plaintiff. So this is what the rule of eggshell skull means. I would like to now read that out. And please note, this is a common law principle and it is applied in civil litigations. So simply put, this particular rule, it means that the defendant would be held responsible for injuries which are caused to a person when he hit him on the head, even if the victim had a particularly delicate skull or an eggshell for a skull. So hence the name eggshell. Now, to draw that analogy to the present case, the court said that, the present case, to the present example that we took. So here, then the defendant was told by the court that regardless of the fact that the plaintiff had a peculiar, condition and he had a weak body, regardless of that, because your act ensued into a certain consequence, therefore you would be held liable for that. Essentially, when the offender would be liable for all injuries that might be intensified due to the peculiar conditions of the injured person that the offender might not have known. Regardless of whether you knew of it or not, that's not our concern. A person who has an eggshell skull would be more severely impacted by an act which an otherwise normal person would be able to withstand. The rule, it is applied for claiming an enhanced compensation for damages that is more than what could have been ordinarily anticipated to be caused by the defendant. Now let's see what is the origin of this particular principle, which is the case law here. So the origins of the eggshell skull rule, they are most often traced back to the 1981 case law, which is the case of Vosburgh versus Putney. This is a case in Wisconsin in US. So here, if I were to tell you the facts of this case, they are same, the example that we just discussed. So here, what essentially had happened was, the incident took place in a school where a 12-year-old boy, which is Putney, the defendant here, he kicked a 14-year-old boy, Vosburgh, in the shine without the knowledge that the latter, that is the plaintiff, he had suffered a prior injury in that bodily area. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court held that the injury was aggravated due to the kick, which caused the plaintiff's leg to become lame. So in his judgment, Justice William P. Leon, he said, even though Putney, the defendant, the person who kicked, he did not intend to cause this degree of harm. The kick, it was an unlawful act as it took place after the teacher had called the class to order. He concluded, this is important, one who intends the act is also responsible for the subsequent harm. Regardless of the quantum, the anonymity of the harm. He is liable for this harm. A decade after this particular verdict, we go to another jurisdiction, which is the King's Bench, which is a part of the English legal system. Here also a woman was awarded damages. So I'll tell you the facts of this case. Essentially, there was a negligent act by the defendant's servant. And as a result of that negligent act, there was a pregnant woman. She fell down, and because she received a shock and she fell down. Because of this falling, later on, she had to give birth to her child prematurely because she was already pregnant. And As a result, when the child was born with abnormalities. He had suffered some sort of medical, condition, and the child was born an idiot. Now, here also, suppose the lady was not pregnant. Would she have suffered the same amount of damages? The answer is no. If there was no baby at all to be born, then there was no chances at all, of course, of the baby being born with any sort of medical urgency or emergency. So here, the extent of this the act's consequence, it is aggravated because of the peculiar condition that the plaintiff was in. So here also the court observed that if a man is negligently run over or otherwise negligently injured in his body, then it is no answer to the sufferer's claim. It is no rebuttal to the sufferer's claim for damages that he would have suffered less injury or he would not have suffered any injury at all if he had not had an unusually thin skull or an unusually weak heart. The eggshell rule, it has consequently also been referred to as thin skull rule in many cases also. So now let's see what is the current case in our country. So in 2005, the facts are the same that we just discussed in the beginning of the video. So in 2005, one Jyoti Devi, she went to get her appendix removed from a hospital in Mandi district of Himachal Pradesh. And though the surgery, it was carried out as per the plan, she reported suffering or experiencing an unusual pain. However, the doctor brushed aside her concern and said that, we're discharging you today and the pain is going to eventually vanish in a day or two. So you don't worry. Then to her agony and to her surprise, and the pain, it continued. And as a result, she had to seek then medical help from a couple of doctors, but to no avail. And therefore, she approached the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences in Chandigarh. And there, to her horror, the doctors found a needle, a 2.5 centimeter needle in her abdomen area, which was causing her pain. Then the act of medical negligence of the doctor and the hospital at Himachal Pradesh Mandi district, it came to the forefront. Therefore, aggrieved, she approached the District Consumer Forum for compensation, and she was awarded a compensation of rupees 5 lakhs for medical negligence by the hospital and the doctor concerned. However, when the matter reached the hospital, of course, appealed. So the matter was before the State Consumer Forum. The State Consumer Forum reduced the compensation to just merely 1 lakh rupees, and then the matter reached the National Consumer Forum. The National Consumer Forum enhanced it to 2 lakh rupees. Then the matter was before the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, as we've already discussed and seen in the beginning of this video, it restored the compensation which was given by the district forum, and the court said that the compensation reduction which was done by the higher level, by the state and the Central Consumer Forum, it was unjust. And even while they applied the eggshell skull rule, why? Because we've already seen this rule is applied for claiming an enhanced compensation. And in our case, ironically, what has happened is the compensation has been reduced only. Now let's see what the Supreme Court had to say on the application of this rule. See, the Supreme Court categorically said that the eggshell skull rule, it would not have any applicability in Jyoti's case. And the answer, students, is absolutely clear. If I were to ask you this question, now that we've already discussed this rule, what do you think? Should this rule have been applied in this case? Did this patient already have a pre-existing medical condition because of which, her pain was aggravated and all of these conditions that followed later on? The answer is absolutely no. She did not have any medical condition. She was suffering from a medical ailment for the treatment of which she approached the hospital, and the hospital was supposed to, treat her well. But there was a negligence on part of the doctors. So now the Supreme Court, this is what the court said, that this rule is not going to apply here, since the facts of the case do not indicate that she had a pre-existing vulnerability or medical condition because of which the victim may have suffered unusual damage. The court noted that the National Commission, it simply mentioned the rule, but did not cite any reasons whatsoever for the application of this rule. The ruling said that the two factors necessitated enhancing the compensation. And what are these two factors? That the woman had already suffered a lot of pain for more than 5 years, and that the case has been going on for a decade-long, journey. So as a result of that, the court enhanced the compensation. Now with this, let's proceed to the national news category. And the first is an awards-related news. India Today's AI anchor Sana wins Global Media Award. This is a very interesting update. Sana, it's an AI-powered news anchor which is developed by India Today Group, and it has been awarded the first prize in the best use of AI in consumer-facing products category. And where is this award? It is at the prestigious International News Media Association Global Media Award. This was held in London. Another appointments-related update. So the government has approved 1-year extension to the term of RBI Deputy Governor. The Indian government, it has extended the term of RBI Deputy Governor T. Ravi Shankar for another year, effective 3rd of May 2024. Shankar, who joined the Reserve Bank of India way back in 1990, so he's clearly served and been associated with the bank for a really long time. He's worked in various positions at the central bank, including the Executive Director of Reserve Bank and IMF consultant. Let's talk about RBI. This is often asked in your GK portion. The headquarters are in Mumbai, India. Establishment goes back to 89 years ago in 1935 on 1st of April, and the governor being Shaktikant Das. Another update in the category of appointments. Sunil Kumar Yadav, an IRS officer, an officer of the Indian Revenue Services, he has been appointed as the Director of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Next up is an update from Jammu. Shaurya Smarak, of 3 fallen army officers, it has been unveiled in Jammu. The Shaurya Smarak of 3 fallen officers, 3 brave sons of Mother India, of armed forces, Major Arvind Bazala, Major Rohit Kumar, and Flight Lieutenant Advitya Bal. It has been unveiled in Jammu and Kashmir. Next, now we come to the international category. So this is a very, very important update. In a historic win, a 60-year-old lawyer, Alejandra Marisa Rodriguez, she was crowned Miss Universe, and she has now become the first woman of her age to win a prestigious title of this, coveted position. She is a 60-year-old woman, a lawyer also. This is a very important, a unique and historic update. Now we come to Pakistan. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar was appointed as the country's Deputy Prime Minister. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, he was appointed as the country's Deputy Minister on Sunday with immediate effect. Now this has brought us to the legal news category with first update from the Supreme Court. Suspension of sentence exception in serious offences, Section 389 CrPC, not to be invoked merely because convict was in jail for long. The Supreme Court has observed in this particular case that factors like nature of the offence held to have been committed or the manner of their commission, the gravity of the offence, and also the desirability of releasing the convict on bail, these are all to be considered objectively, and such consideration should reflect in the consequential order which is passed under Section 389 CrPC. Factors of the likelihood of delay in incarceration of for a particular period should not be sole consideration while deciding the plea of the accused to suspend the sentence pending the appeal against conviction under Section 389 of the CrPC. These are the factors which should objectively be considered. The name of this case is Shivani Tyagi versus State of UP and another. Next is an update from Karnataka High Court. The Karnataka High Court has made it clear that the concept of fraud and or coercion, which is incorporated in Section 23 of the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act of 2007, to be the ground to declare the gift deed as void, it is limited to the breach of condition that the transferee shall provide basic amenities and physical needs to the senior citizen transferred. The name of this particular case is Jay Shankar and the Assistant Commissioner and others. And this has brought us to an end of our TNA. Thank you so much for being with us. And the quiz link, which is based on yesterday's TNA, it is made available in the description of this video itself. Have a wonderful day ahead.